Let's be honest, there's enough in the world to be stressed about right now without our grown-up play pretend game raising our cortisol levels. Hot take, but I think playing games with our friends for fun should relieve stress, not create it. I think we should leave game night feeling better than we did going into it. And if that's already true for you, then congrats! You don't need to watch this video. Feel free to go watch the one where I made a life-sized mimic instead. No, seriously, please go watch that. I worked so hard on it, and it's my biggest flop all year. But there are tons of people in the tabletop community, including me, who report experiencing stress tied to their games. Players and DMs alike are grappling with everything from managing prep time, to performance anxiety over running a great game or making the right decisions, to social dynamics within the group. And while all of that might be manageable on its own, I also think our online tabletop gaming community can make that kind of stress worse. Now, there are probably people already typing up comments that say things like, if playing Dungeons and Dragons stresses you out, you have bigger issues to deal with. And first of all, take it down a notch, Chief. There's no need to be rude. But also, sure, maybe we do have bigger issues to deal with. I can manage to feel stressed about going to a new grocery store or calling the doctor's office. It's not like it's all about the game. I'm an anxious person overall. But even people who get overwhelmed and get anxious still deserve to enjoy playing tabletop games. I'm not here to lay out a foolproof 4-step plan to stop stressing over games or something. God knows no one should look to me for stress management tools, since I'm basically 100 pounds of anxiety wrapped in human skin. Instead, I kind of just want to talk about my thoughts on this issue, and how the way that we play and even talk about these games might have a role in that. Am I overthinking this? Probably. But that's the whole vibe around here. How else could I make over 200 videos about one game? So buckle up, because I have tons of pent-up anxious energy, and if I don't spend it on something other than doom scrolling, I'm gonna give in to the extremely compelling urge to just lie on the floor for the next 4 years. I think we should start with the fact that there are some people for whom tabletop games will always be a little stressful. I get it, I'm one of those people. If there's nothing real going on in my life that's worth stressing about, I will make something up. I know, it's a gift. For players, maybe it's the fear of making the wrong decision and then facing the consequences for it. Unlike many types of games, there's often no correct answer to suss out in a tabletop game. You never know when deciding to open a locked door or pick up a mysterious magic item is gonna take you down a path that ends with your character's closed casket funeral. Out of character, players might feel self-conscious, especially because nerds like us are more likely to have social anxiety. Sometimes it's hard enough to talk to people in real life, and here we are mixing in, also pretend you're an elf wizard. If you're nervous that other players might not like your in-character choices or your gameplay style, the stakes can feel pretty real. Plus, in a social game, you're occasionally gonna have social conflicts. If you're conflict averse, it might be tough to say something like, hey, it's really frustrating when you interrupt and talk over me when I'm trying to roleplay. A lot of people stay in games that don't make them happy because they're nervous about blowing up their friend group over a fantasy game. And if playing doesn't stress you out, DMing is a whole different animal. We're supposed to be part babysitter, part fantasy historian, part improv comic, with an encyclopedic knowledge of the rules and the patience of a DMV employee at closing time. There's so much to keep track of. Storylines, loot, mechanics, NPCs, player backstories, and all this while you're trying to make sure everyone's having fun and staying engaged. A lot of us feel pressure to be a sort of all-knowing authority who's always in control, even though half the time our notes are just 3 bullet points and a prayer. And that's just the stuff DMs have to handle during game sessions. When everybody else gets to set the game aside and do other things, game masters have homework. And you might be saying, well, if DMing is so hard, then why'd you volunteer for it? But it really isn't that black and white. You can love something and be stressed out by it. Trust me, I own cats. I'm very familiar with this duality. He can be your angel or your devil. DMing can be fun and fulfilling and hard at the same time. But there are also some people who consider themselves unwilling forever DMs. People who don't love DMing, but know that if they're not running the game, there is no game. Press F to pay respects. So yeah, some people would be experiencing stress around these things, even in a vacuum. But we don't exist in a vacuum. And the online community around tabletop games can amplify these kinds of stresses, or even create them in a person who would otherwise be doing fine. To be honest, this is the main reason I wanted to make this video, because I think this is a growing problem that we aren't really addressing. So let's talk about the internet. Much of the online tabletop gaming community exists on social media platforms, and this is in itself stress-inducing, because as anyone who's paying attention already knows, social media actively incentivizes takes that make you feel bad. Sorry if this is your first time learning that. I know, this is the bad place. Add to that the fact that on some platforms, people actually get paid for views, such as TikTok or Twitter. Oh, or YouTube. I get paid for views too, but not very much, which is why I take sponsorships. Let's cut to that now. Honestly, a girls' night out is just what I needed. And don't worry, I customized the place just for us. This is the new tavern set from today's sponsor, Modular Realms. It just launched on Kickstarter. It's totally modular, so we can make whatever layouts we want with easy magnetic pieces made from recycled plastic. We can even build up if we want a second floor. Rooftop karaoke, anyone? Plus, the pieces are double-sided, so we can use these same magnetic tiles for a dungeon later if we have one too many and things get crazy. I'm looking at you, Nakrasha. Ugh, I love hanging out with my girls. You never know when we'll get up to some adventures. This set actually comes with its own adventure for 5th edition, featuring all kinds of maps that can be built with these same pieces. And of course, it's so versatile, we could use it for 100 girls' nights and never repeat a layout. Here's to Modular Realms on Kickstarter. Pledge today at the link in the description for the ultimate tavern experience. Cheers! Hey, Mom. No, I'm not sitting alone on a Friday night. I told you it's girls' night. Thank you for supporting the channel by watching those silly little skits, and thank you to Modular Realms for paying me to make a silly little skit. Anyway, as we were saying, there are several social media platforms where people get paid for views. The thing is, people get paid just as much for your views if you're upset as they do if you're happy. And if you're upset, you're usually more likely to engage, amplifying the post or video within the algorithm. That's why some people intentionally create so-called rage bait content, because it's an easy way to get paid. The only job requirement is that you suck as a person overall. Even when you know about all this, it's still really hard to avoid taking the bait of stuff that upsets you. I fall victim to it all the time. You guys have left tons of lovely, thoughtful comments that I read and then immediately forget. But one person left a comment 3 weeks ago accusing me of using an AI-generated image in the thumbnail for my Bastions video, and it's literally the art from the book, and they haven't replied to me. And I have thought about it way too much. What happened, buddy? Dropped your phone in the toilet? Come back and answer for your crimes. What all this means is that people are getting attention and followers, and in some cases real money, for creating controversy. No wonder so many people are out here tweeting whatever hot take about D&D is gonna rile everyone up this week, or making TikToks where they recount a story about a game master so evil that you almost can't believe it's real. And of course, this doesn't mean that nothing authentic gets posted on social media. As long as Old Friend's Senior Dog Sanctuary exists, there will always be something good and pure on the internet. It doesn't even mean that everything that's upsetting is automatically fake. But what it does mean is that thanks to the way our social media algorithms work, you are way more likely to see something that makes you feel bad than something that makes you feel good, or even neutral. When we're talking about platforms that incentivize controversy, YouTube is right up at the top of the list. One of the first things you learn as a creator on YouTube is that the title and thumbnail are the gatekeepers of your video. If you can't inspire a strong emotion in the fraction of a second that somebody scrolls past your thumb, then nobody clicks on it. And nobody sees any of the hard work that you've put into that 3-day, life-sized mimic build. I mean, that non-specific video. Just like on these other platforms, people are more likely to engage with something that upsets them, which is why you see whole successful YouTube channels dedicated to things like reading and reacting to tabletop horror stories from Reddit, or obsessing over the impending doom of the industry week after week after week. Dungeons & Dragons is really dying this time, guys, I swear. And even channels like mine that offer advice tend to frame that advice in a way that inspires fear, because fear can be a very motivating emotion. If you see a video titled, "Are you making this huge GM mistake?" you're gonna feel the impulse to click it, because you're afraid that you're making that mistake and you don't even know it. Now, it might seem like I'm sitting up here on my high horse blaming other creators for negativity online while keeping a halo firmly planted on my head, but that is absolutely not my intention. I mean, come on, we all know I'll pick Tiefling over SMR any day. I've used my share of negative titles because unfortunately, they almost universally perform better than positive or neutral ones. And even when I make an effort to ensure that everything about my videos, from the thumbnail to the title to the content, are warm and welcoming, they can still plant fear and self-doubt into the heads of viewers. A huge part of my channel, and channels like it, is trying to solve problems, to help people run better games, be better players, and have more fun at the table. This means that a lot of my videos are focused on problems. If I learn that people are really struggling with writing backstories or keeping combat moving, I'll make videos about how to write a good backstory, or how to keep combat from dragging. I mean, it wouldn't be very useful to make a video called, "Is your combat great?" Awesome, keep up the good work. And no matter how good a video is, no solution is universal. My thoughts on what makes a good backstory may be different from yours, and at times, following my advice may actually make your game worse if you and your table don't align with my style or my priorities. I am obviously not saying that YouTube videos that help people solve problems at their game table are bad. I'm just saying that if you consume a steady diet of online tabletop gaming content, especially if you're a game master, it's easy to find yourself questioning your skills and holding yourself to an extreme standard. Even if things are going great at your actual game table, you might watch a video and think, oh, I don't do it that way at all, and start worrying that you're doing things wrong. Maybe you and your players were perfectly satisfied with your game, but then you read somebody's impassioned essay on Reddit about how bad DMPCs are, and now you're wondering if you've messed up by letting wiggly two-toes Crankshaft, the goblin locksmith, travel with the party. You might find yourself thinking, hang on, is my backstory cliche? Are my players bored during combat? Does Ginny always carry a sword? Well, yeah. I think I've been pretty clear about that last one. One other part of the tabletop gaming ecosystem that can't be ignored is actual play shows. Honestly, I don't want to spend too long on this because it's kind of been discussed to death, but it has to be acknowledged that if you're comparing your home game to games featuring professional actors and comedians who are performing for an audience, you're setting a bar for yourself and your table that you will almost certainly fall short of. Not many people will feel great about their GM skills if they're using Matt Mercer or Brennan Lee Mulligan as a yardstick. It's like comparing how do I imply this on a PG-rated channel? It's like comparing real life to a cinematic production starring professionals. Real life just tends to have more bloopers. Also, in some ways, I think actual play shows can lock us into thinking that there is just one correct way to play a game. In reality, your home game might look very different from the kinds of games that are live streamed and still be absolutely perfect for your specific table. But if you're too busy trying to replicate someone else's game, you're never gonna have a chance to figure out the style that suits your group. I'm not saying watching actual play is bad. It can also teach GMs and players a lot, and of course it's fun to watch. But comparison tends to roll high on sleight of hand and sneak off with your joy, so I think it's always useful to have a little reminder to try not to fall into that habit. If you're watching D&D YouTube, you probably fall into the category of terminally online, at least as it applies to the tabletop world. Don't feel too bad about it, at least we're terminal together. That means that you are exposed to all the ways that you can drill very, very deep on these games. People are out here writing entire books on how to make better dungeons, how to design the perfect shop, how to craft great puzzles. I've been making videos every week about D&D for 5 years, and somehow I'm not out of topics. And I've still barely scratched the surface on Fey Courts, so I've got at least a few more years in the barrel. All that is to say, it's easy to get overwhelmed by the sheer breadth of content that a game could cover. Another big side effect of being terminally online is that we can overestimate the impact of every little thing that happens in this community. You might see people arguing online about some very narrow category of the game, and it can lead you to place disproportionate weight on things that otherwise wouldn't really seem like a big deal. You can see this in 45-minute YouTube videos, acting like some relatively small rule change is gonna cause the entire game to collapse, or lengthy message board debates full of impassioned 1,000-word comments about why goblins would absolutely never have hierarchical power structures. You idiot. The complexity and depth is one of the things that draws people to games like D&D. It's a very attractive hyperfixation. And this is all amplified by the fact that the loudest, most visible people on social media don't generally represent the average person. Sometimes I'll get an unusually high number of negative comments on a video and I'll start to worry, does everyone hate this? And then I realize that even my least popular videos of all time have 96% thumbs up ratings or higher. 96%. I had thoroughly unhealthy standards for myself in school, but even I would be satisfied with that on my report card. So what do? How do we make sure we're getting the good parts of this beautiful community and not letting the bad parts poison our games? I know I said I wasn't gonna give you a foolproof 4-step plan, but I can't stand complaining about a problem and not at least making an effort towards solving it. So here's a 4-part plan. It's not foolproof, but I'll do my best. Step 1, we gotta start by evaluating. Take some deep breaths, check in with yourself, and be honest about whether or not your games are adding more to your life than they're taking from it. For a lot of us, that'll be an easy yes, but I get a lot of messages and comments from people asking for tabletop advice, and to be totally honest with you, some of you guys must have rock bottom perception scores to miss red flags that big. A few of you are keeping death grips on terrible games. I think this can be especially hard if you, like me, have made tabletop games a big part of your personality and your lifestyle. When I realized I needed to stop running running my first campaign because I was so overwhelmed and burnt out, it was really painful to admit. But it was also painful to keep playing when I knew that it was making me unhappy. Acknowledging that there's a problem doesn't mean you have to quit, but you certainly can't solve the problem without first admitting that a problem exists. Step 2, identify what exactly needs to change to make the game less stressful. If you find that social media is really poisoning your mood, unfollow some accounts or leave some communities. If you're overwhelmed by game prep, maybe you need to be running a module. If scheduling is a constant source of tension, outsource it to a player or pick a consistent game day and run the game whether everyone's there or not. And if you truly hate being a game master, then stop doing it. It's a real why are you hitting yourself situation, honestly. If another player won't take up the mantle, maybe you pivot to board game night instead, or you find another group where you get to be a player. Bored of your character? Change it. Tired of the campaign you're running? End it. Unhappy with your group? Leave it. This is one of the few places in our lives where we have absolute power. I think it's also important to remember that even though there are rules for tabletop games, nobody's enforcing them. We can change literally anything that isn't working for us. I know someone who was like, yeah, my table just got rid of spell preparation entirely. It wasn't fun for us, so we don't use it. Every caster has access to all their spells all the time. And if you posted about that online, everyone would tell you that you're crazy and you're gonna break the game. But it's working for them, and it's kinda no one else's business. Step 3, change your mindset. I know, easier said than done, but changing your mindset isn't something that you decide to do once and then never have to do again. It's a practice, and you have to keep reminding yourself of it until it becomes a habit. Ultimately, even when it doesn't feel like it, the stakes are low. I used to work at a grocery store, and I remember that sometimes something would go wrong, like a delivery wouldn't come in or a freezer would stop working, and one of my coworkers would say, "Nobody's dying, we sell groceries." And she meant that very literally because her previous job was at a hospital where mistakes could actually cost lives. Sure, it sucked to lose an entire freezer full of chicken, but at least nobody was coding in the condiment aisle. Sometimes I think those of us who are really passionate about tabletop games need a little reminder of this. Nobody's dying, we're playing pretend. And that's not to say that tabletop games can't be very important and very impactful in our lives, but in the end, this is a game that we're playing for fun. If it's not fun, then what is the point? Step 4, I mean this in the kindest and most understanding way possible, but if the online community is a meaningful part of why you're stressed over games, you gotta touch grass. Seriously, get offline, go outside, play some games with real people in the real world. There have been times in my life when I was getting absolutely slammed online for various reasons. Not just people being rude, but people openly fantasizing about cutting my car's brake line over my opinions on Session Zero. People accusing me of terrible things because they disagree with what I did or didn't make a YouTube video about. And when I'm glued to my screen, that feels like the end of the world. But it's really hard to keep feeling that way when you log off and go get $1 tacos and a margarita at the local Irish pub that for some unknown reason celebrates Taco Tuesday. Like I said, not a foolproof plan, but these are 4 things that have helped me purge some of the bad vibes that I've felt about tabletop games in the past, and I hope that they help some of you do the same. My main goal on this channel is to help you have more fun playing tabletop games. At this point, I've made over 200 videos, and there's absolutely no way that all of them apply to you and your games. I like making videos that help people overcome the problems they're facing at their tables, but I would hate if my videos made anyone start seeing problems where there aren't any. I want people who watch my channel to feel good, to feel excited and energized and creatively empowered, to feel comforted and accepted and welcomed, to feel like, wow, that life-sized mimic is so cool and was totally worth spending 3 full days on, even though 35% less of my regular viewers clicked on it than normal. Whatever. I'm gonna go get some tacos.